Good afternoon, everyone. We are the Group 1, and today we are presenting to you a report entitled Social Self Nature and Depth of Relationships, Attitudes, and Stereotypes. Together with my group mates, April Joy Gavin, Reynelyn Molisimo, Marc Simon Grosim, Pagulong Kristal Joice, Gare Gange Jr., Shem Menkent Meriveles, Angelord Grabato, and I am John Loupe Orbita. A person's social life consists of various bonds they form with others, such as family, friends, members of their community, and strangers. To put it simply, anyone you've made bonds with or being acquainted with them can be considered as part of your social life. Take, for example, your teacher that you talk to every day, the canteen clerk that you always see and smile and have small conversations with, or the bus driver that you ride to school every day and you talk to. It can be measured by the duration and quality of the social interactions they have on a regular basis, both in person and online. It is measured by the duration and quality of social interactions, as the longer you stay acquainted, the deeper your bond gets, making your relationship stronger than before. Take, for example, your best friend. You've been with that person for met almost all of your life, and your relationship with him can be called strong re- compared to your current friend that you've met only for a year, which you can only call as an acquaintance, not your true friend, as you've only met for a short while. Human beings are social species, driven by a desire for community and belonging. Social contacts satisfy that desire. We humans cannot live without social contact. Throughout throughout evolution, we were made to be social creatures as we depended on each other for survival. What you lack is what others might have, and the same can be said otherwise. This has been true up until today, as we have been helping each other throughout our history. Take for example, you're in a classroom, you have an activity, and you you yourself know that your weakness is drawing, but your friend is good at drawing. So you ask them for help in order for you to have a good report.
Most attitudes are determined by affect, behavior, and cognition. There is nevertheless variability in this regard across people and across attitudes. Some attitudes are more likely to be based on feelings, some are more likely to be based on behaviors, and some are more likely to be based on beliefs. For example, your attitude toward chocolate ice cream is probably determined in large part by affect. Although you can describe its taste, mostly you may just like it. Your attitude toward your toothbrush, on the other hand, is probably more cognitive. Still, other of your attitudes may be based on more on behavior. For example, your attitude toward note-taking during lectures probably depends, at least in part, on whether or not you regularly take notes. Different people may hold attitude toward the same attitude object for different reasons. For example, some people vote for politicians because they like their policies, whereas others vote for or against politicians because they just like or dislike their public persona. Although you think that cognition would be more important in this regard, political scientists have shown that many voting decisions are primarily on the basis of effect. Indeed, it is fair to say that the effective components of attitudes is generally the strongest and most important. Human beings hold attitudes because they are useful. Particularly, our attitudes enable us to determine, often very quickly and effortlessly, which behaviors to engage in, which people to approach or avoid, and even which products to buy. You can imagine that making quick decisions about what to avoid or approach has had substantial value in our evolutionary experience. For example, snake is bad, so you run away. Blueberries are good, so you eat them.
Nature and depth of relationship. Relationships are the most important aspect of our life. They can be positive and conflicted, but the lack of relationship could be worst of all, as it creates loneliness. Familiarity. Being comfortable with other person is necessary condition for a close relationship to develop. We people like to associate with others who are similar to our attitude, behavior patterns, personal characteristics, taste of our passion, intelligence, personality, and the like. Attraction. People may drawn or attracted to other due to the reason like similarities or differences in interests, personality, characteristic, life goal, and lifestyle. Or in short, attraction may lead to a deeper relationship. That is according to Shanstruck 2003. Love. The intense feeling of deep constant affection and emotion in which person always sees good, happiness, and welfare to others. Although love has a three common kinds: romantic love, affectionate love, consummate love. Romantic love or passionate love includes the intermingling of different emotions, fears, anger, sexual desire, joy, and jealousy. Affectionate love or compassionate love occurs when someone has deep and affection for a person and desire to have him or her near constantly. Consummate love, the strongest, fullest type of love. The ideal form of love involves passion, intimacy, and commitment. Fashion, something to do with physical and sexual attraction to others.
If someone is stereotyped as something, people form a fixed general idea or image of them, so that it is assumed that they will behave in a particular way. One example of stereotype is racial profiling. It is the act of suspecting, targeting, or discriminating against a person based on their ethnicity or religion. Racial profiling frequently involves prejudice against minorities and capitalizes on any negative assumption because of the target's democratic race. For example, saying that Asian brought the virus COVID-19 is a stereotype because it's grouping the race together to indicate that everyone brought the virus COVID-19. Another example is gender profiling, where people of various genders are frequently categorized as possessing characteristics that suits the profile of masculine and feminine occupation. Because women are perceived to be feminine, they are seen as more suitable for feminine occupations, and because men were perceived to be masculine, they are seen to be strong and that they cannot be emotionally weak. Women aren't as smart as men. Women can do a good job as men. Women are nurses, not doctors. Men are doctors, not nurses. Women are supposed to cook and do housework. Men are supposed to have a job. Women are caring and friendly. Men are tough and messy. Women are followers. Men are leaders. Women should look pretty, and men should be good in sports. Stereotypes also exist about cultures and countries as a whole. When someone has an opinion about another person based on who they are, where they came from, or the language they speak without getting to know them, this is known as cultural stereotyping. For example, when people assume that all Arabs and Muslims are terrorists, all Asians are good at math, Asians like to eat rice and drive slow. All black outside the United States are poor.
So that is all for the first topic. These are the sources. Thank you and goodbye.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are the Group 1, and our topic for today is moral self, personal value, and philosophy of life. The moral self is concerned with the morality of selfhood that implicates both who a person is and how a person acts. So, it simply describes the characteristics, thoughts, and feelings of a person and how he behaves on certain situations. Moral self is divided into two sides, the having side and the doing side. The having side of the moral self is cognitively and socially constructed. Social construction occurs through roles, practices, and interpersonal interaction within the social moral context where a person is involved. Cognitive construction occurs and solely based on personal beliefs about themselves based on their experience in social interactions. These two constitutes how a person is understood as having a moral self. The doing side of the moral self emerges when these morals are put into reality where a person evaluates his own knowledge and emotion before doing something for it to be morally right. This side is also involved in acknowledging responsibilities and decision with control of their own self. Without this side, the moral self is useless. As such, the doing side of the moral self has been described as a self-regulatory mechanism that motivates moral action. The having side of the moral self explains how morality is internalized into a person, whereas the doing side describes how a person decides and behaves.
Personal values. Personal values are part of the moral code that guides our action and defines who we are. The simplest way to describe a personal values are is to think in terms of your personality and behavior. So personal values are very important to guide us who we are. There are many personal values and you can choose what is important to you over the others. Understanding your values can really help. When you know your own values, you can use them to make decisions about how to live your life. It is also possible that your values will change as you grow as a person. If you start to feel lacking in life, repeat this process and find out if you have new personal values to emerge. We have here an example of personal values. First is kindness. Each act of kindness changing the way we see ourselves and others, as well as how the others see us. As our kindness positively affects others, we feel more compassionate, confident, useful, and in control. Next is determination. It means you never give up. You really ensure that you move forward to finish the things you wanted to do. So the determination is another example of personal values. Last is honesty. Honesty is common or basic personal values. Honesty is demonstrating by what we say and what we do. It will affect our entire life, our job, our relationship, our feelings, and the action we take. It can move us forward and allow us to feel good about what we do.
So, personal values are those values we hold most. It means that these values, which is in the higher part of your hierarchy, when it comes to what values are you going to practice, is practice the most. Personal. It means it is the belonging of a particular person rather than anyone else. It is yours. Personal values differ from person to person and are often affected by one's culture, upbringing, and life experiences, among other factors. Because these values are yours, its importance will always vary from each one of us. If privacy do matters to you, doesn't mean it matters to me the most. If faith do matter to you, doesn't mean it matters to me the most. And if respect do matters to you, doesn't mean it matters to me the most. One example is Philippine culture and American culture. This is some kind of stereotyping, but for the sake of our presentation, I will have Philippine culture and American culture's comparison. So, if Americans are known for being early in meetings, Filipinos are way too different. This is a generalization of people according to their culture, but because it is being practiced by the people of a country, it is then passed to next generations, starting from our great grandparents to our grandparents to our parents and to us. This trait is being adapted. That's an example of how culture affects our personal values. So our lives are shaped by what values we choose to prioritize and adapt. Say, for example, you are an employee in this company, and every minute that you are late will be deducted from your salary. So the tendency is for you to prioritize punctuality and discipline so that there will be no deduction, right? So you are employed and you need the money, which is why you also need to come early. Last example is a times of calamity. Some people value heroism more than they value their own life, and you have nothing to do with it. Okay, if they sacrifice themselves helping other people despite the danger, there is nothing wrong with that. The same thing with saving yourself rather than taking the risk, because some sacrifices are just not worth it.
Life has no meaning if you don't have the urge to wake up in the morning to see the next day. Many people live their lives unhappy since they have no purpose or meaning to fulfill their satisfied needs. Purpose to me is something to look forward to in life. Without purpose and meaning in life, there is no point of living at all. I learned that without passion to live one's life means nothing and it is a waste of soul. Self improvements are what we want to achieve and they're much more meaningful. Just what we need to accomplish to survive. Unlike daily routines or short term objectives, they drive our behaviors over the long run. There is no psychological definition for them and they aren't strictly a clinical construct, but they help us determine what we want to experience in terms our values, and because they are personal ambition, they can take many different forms, but they give us a sense of direction and make us accountable as we strive for happiness and well-being and for our best possible lives. A definite philosophy helps you in identifying what you really care about. When you know what you want to care about, then and you become loyal and steady in pursuing your ultimate goal.